Emily Carter had always been good at noticing things. She noticed when Mrs. Anderson wore the same earrings 3 days in a row. She noticed when the mailman started walking with a limp after his birthday. She noticed when the oak tree by the school playground lost its biggest branch during last winter's storm. But lately, Emily had been noticing things she wished she didn't, like how her father forgot to pack Lily's lunch 4 times this month, or how the living room curtains stayed closed even on sunny days, or how the house had started to smell different. Not bad exactly, just tired. Emily stood at her bedroom window, watching the morning light paint the neighborhood in soft gold. Down the street, Mr. Peterson was watering his garden. Across the way, the Miller twins were racing to their school bus. Everything looked normal. Everything looked safe. But Emily's hands were shaking. In the next room, she could hear Lily humming, that tuneless, happy sound 3-year-olds make when they're playing with their stuffed animals. Dad was still asleep. He'd been sleeping later and later, his alarm clock buried somewhere under yesterday's clothes. Emily had made breakfast again, cereal for Lily because that was easy. Nothing for Dad because he'd said he wasn't hungry. Again. She pulled her backpack from under the bed, the same purple one Mom had bought her 2 years ago. The straps were fraying now, but Emily couldn't bring herself to ask for a new one. Asking for things felt wrong. Heavy. Emmy? Lily appeared in the doorway, dragging her favorite blanket, the yellow one with moons and stars that used to be bright but now looked gray from too many washings. Hey, Lilybug. Emily forced her voice to sound light, easy. You ready for today? Lily nodded, her blonde curls bouncing. She didn't understand. She was too little to understand that Dad hadn't read her a bedtime story in 3 weeks. Too little to notice that the refrigerator was getting emptier. Too little to realize that 9-year-old girls shouldn't have to decide what happens next. But Emily understood. She'd been understanding for months now, watching the slow unraveling of everything familiar. She'd tried being extra good, extra quiet, extra helpful. She'd tried not being a burden. She'd tried hoping things would get better on their own. They hadn't. Yesterday, she'd found Lily in the backyard, alone, playing in the dirt in just her diaper. Dad had fallen asleep on the couch again. Lily could have wandered into the street. She could have gotten hurt. She could have. Emily stopped that thought before it finished. She knelt down in front of her little sister and straightened the collar of her shirt, the one with the rainbow that was missing 2 buttons now. Lily, we're going to go on a special walk today. Just you and me. Park? Lily's eyes lit up. Sort of. Emily swallowed hard. We're going to go talk to some people who help families. Nice people. She'd looked up the address last night on the school library computer, before the librarian had closed for the evening. Maplewood Police Station, 427 Oak Street. A 12-minute walk, according to the map. Close enough that they could make it before Dad woke up. Emily picked up Lily and settled her into the old stroller they kept by the door. The wheels squeaked now, and one handlebar was wrapped in duct tape, but it still worked. She paused at the threshold of the house, looking back at the living room where family photos still hung on the walls. Mom's smile, forever frozen in those frames. Dad's laugh, captured in a moment that felt like it belonged to different people. A part of her wanted to run back inside, to pretend everything was fine, to keep being the good girl who didn't cause trouble. But then Lily reached up and grabbed her hand, trusting and small and depending on her big sister to know what to do. Emily took a breath. She opened the door and stepped into the morning light, toward a future she couldn't see but knew, somehow, had to be better than staying silent. The walk to Oak Street had begun. The sidewalk felt longer than Emily remembered. She'd walked these streets 100 times, to school, to the library, to Mrs. Chen's corner store where they used to buy ice cream on Saturdays. But today, every crack in the pavement seemed wider. Every house they passed seemed to be watching. The stroller wheels squeaked with each push. Squeak, 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 like a clock counting down. Emmy, look! Lily pointed at a robin hopping across the Martinez family's lawn. Birdie, Emily managed to smile. Yeah, sweetie. A pretty one. Her mind kept racing ahead, rehearsing words she didn't know how to say. What would she tell them? How do you explain that nothing terrible has happened yet? But you're scared something might? How do you describe the feeling of a house slowly becoming empty even though people still live in it? They passed the Henderson house, where Tommy Henderson was loading baseball equipment into his mom's car. His mom was laughing at something he said, ruffling his hair. Emily looked away quickly, a strange ache blooming in her chest. She used to have that. Dad used to joke around, used to pack elaborate lunches with little notes tucked inside, used to sing off-key while making pancakes on Sunday mornings. When did it stop? Emily couldn't pinpoint an exact moment. It was like watching snow melt. You don't see it happen, but suddenly everything is wet and gray and different. "Where we going?" Lily asked, her small voice cutting through Emily's thoughts. "To talk to some people who help." Emily kept her voice steady, even though her stomach was doing somersaults. People who know what to do when things get hard. Like teachers? Sort of, but different. They turned onto Oak Street, and Emily's breath caught. 3 more blocks. The police station sat at the end like a destination she couldn't turn away from now, even if she wanted to. What if they didn't believe her? What if they thought she was being dramatic? Kids at school sometimes called her too serious, or worry bug. What if the police thought the same thing? Worse, what if they did believe her? What if they took her and Lily away? What if Dad got in trouble? He wasn't trying to hurt them, he was just lost, stuck, drowning in something Emily was too young to fully understand. But she understood enough to know, if she did nothing, things would keep getting worse. A memory flashed, sharp and clear. Last week she'd found Dad sitting in the dark kitchen at 3 in the morning just staring at nothing. When she'd asked if he was okay, he'd said, "I'm fine, Em. Go back to bed." But his voice sounded hollow, like an echo of someone who used to be there. That's when Emily knew hoping wasn't enough anymore. "Emmy?" Lily's hand reached up, tugging Emily's sleeve. "You scared?" Emily stopped walking. She knelt down so she was eye level with her little sister, those wide blue eyes that trusted her completely, innocently, absolutely. "A little bit," Emily admitted, because lying to Lily felt wrong, even now. But sometimes being brave means doing the scary thing anyway. Like when I got my shots? Exactly like that. Lily considered this, then nodded seriously. "Okay. I be brave too." Emily's throat tightened. 3 years old, and already learning to be brave about things she shouldn't have to think about. They kept walking, past the flower shop with its rainbow of petals in the window, past the coffee shop where Dad used to take them for hot chocolate, past the bench where Mom used to sit and read while they played at the park across the street. Everything looked so normal, so everyday, like the world didn't know that one little girl was about to change everything. The police station came into view, a brick building with white trim and an American flag waving gently in the morning breeze. It looked official, but not scary, solid, safe. Emily's legs felt heavy, like they were filled with sand. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading and hoping for all at once. She could still turn around, walk home, pretend this was just a morning stroll, go back to making breakfast and staying quiet and hoping things would fix themselves. But then she remembered Lily in the backyard, alone. She remembered the empty refrigerator, the closed curtains, the silence that had replaced Dad's laughter. Emily pushed the stroller up the wheelchair ramp. Her hand reached for the door handle. She pulled it open and the cool air-conditioned air rushed out to meet them. Inside, a police officer at the front desk looked up. He had kind eyes, tired, but kind. Emily's voice came out smaller than she meant it to. "Excuse me, I need help." The police station smelled like coffee and paper, and something else Emily couldn't name. Maybe responsibility, if responsibility had a smell. The officer at the desk set down his pen. His name tag read Reynolds. He had gray hair and smile lines around his eyes, the kind of face that belonged to someone's grandfather. "Hello there," Officer Reynolds said gently. "What's your name?" "Emily Carter." Her voice barely made it across the counter. "And this is my sister, Lily." Lily waved shyly from the stroller, clutching her Moon and Stars blanket. "Nice to meet you both." Officer Reynolds came around the desk, moving slowly, carefully, like he understood that sudden movements might scare them away. "Emily, you said you need help?" The words she'd rehearsed during the walk suddenly scattered like leaves in wind. "How did you start? Where did you begin when nothing was one big terrible thing but lots of small terrible things piled up?" "It's about my dad," Emily managed, "and things at home." Officer Reynolds nodded, pulling up a chair so he was sitting at her level now, not towering over her, not intimidating, just there, listening. "Okay," he said. "Why don't you tell me what's been happening?" Emily's hands twisted together. "Nothing bad. I mean, not like, he doesn't hit us or anything. He's not mean. He's just, how do you explain disappearing while still being there?" "He forgets things," Emily continued, words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. "He forgot to pick me up from school twice last week. He forgets to make dinner. Yesterday, he forgot Lily was in the backyard, and she was out there alone for, I don't know how long. I found her playing in the dirt." Officer Reynolds wrote something down, but his eyes never left Emily's face. "That must have been scary." "I'm scared all the time now," Emily whispered, and saying it out loud made it more real somehow. "He sleeps too much. The house is getting messy. There's not much food, and he just stares at nothing sometimes, like he's not really there." "Is your mom at home?" Emily's throat tightened. "Mom died 2 years ago. Car accident." Something shifted in Officer Reynolds' expression. Not pity, exactly, but understanding. "I'm sorry, Emily." "It's okay. It wasn't okay, but that's what you were supposed to say. Dad was doing better for a while, but then he lost his job at the factory when it closed down, and then he got sick. Some kind of pain thing. I don't really understand it, and the medicine costs a lot. And now everything was falling apart in slow motion, and Emily was just one kid trying to hold together pieces too big for her hands." "Emmy?" Lily's small voice interrupted. "I hungry." Emily's cheeks burned with shame. She'd forgotten to pack snacks, another thing she was supposed to remember. "Tell you what," Officer Reynolds said, standing up. "Let me get you both something to drink and maybe a snack from the break room. Then we'll figure out what to do next. Sound good?" Emily nodded, relief and terror mixing together in her chest. While Officer Reynolds walked toward a back room, Emily looked around the station. There were wanted posters on one wall, but also a bulletin board with photos from something called the Community Picnic. Police officers smiling next to families, kids holding hot dogs, everyone looking safe and happy. Could they be safe and happy again? Or had she just done something that would make everything worse? Officer Reynolds returned with juice boxes and crackers. Lily accepted hers with a bright "thank you" that made Emily's heart ache. Such a little kid, so trusting, so unaware that their whole world might be about to change. "Emily," Officer Reynolds said, sitting back down with his own cup of coffee, "I want you to know something important. You did exactly the right thing by coming here." "I did?" Emily's voice cracked. "You did. What you described, your dad forgetting things, being unable to take care of you and your sister properly, that's not your fault. And it's not something you should have to handle alone. But what if..." Emily's words tumbled out in a rush. "What if he gets in trouble? What if you take us away? What if he gets more sad because of me? I don't want to hurt him. I just want someone to help us. To help him." Officer Reynolds leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. "Emily, you're 9 years old. You should be worried about homework and friends and what you want to be when you grow up. You shouldn't be raising your little sister by yourself. You shouldn't be scared about whether there'll be food or whether someone's watching Lily." Tears burned in Emily's eyes. She blinked them back hard. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now," Officer Reynolds said gently, "we make sure you and Lily are safe. And we see what kind of help your dad needs. Sometimes families need support, not punishment. Let me make some calls, okay?" Emily nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. As Officer Reynolds picked up the phone, Emily looked down at Lily, who was happily munching crackers, oblivious to the weight of what was happening. She'd done it. She'd said the words out loud. Something isn't right. And now, there was no going back. Officer Reynolds made 3 phone calls while Emily sat in a plastic chair that was too big for her, swinging her legs that didn't quite reach the floor. She couldn't hear everything he said. Words like situation and assessment and child services floated across the room, clinical and frightening. Each phrase made Emily's stomach twist tighter. Child services. She'd heard about that before, whispered on the playground. Kids taken away from their parents, foster homes, families split apart. What had she done? Emmy, juice gone. Lily held up her empty box, the straw making that slurping sound against the bottom. I know, Lilybug. Emily's voice came out steadier than she felt. We'll get more soon. Officer Reynolds hung up and returned to them, carrying a folder and a gentle expression that somehow made Emily more nervous, not less. Emily, someone is going to come talk with you in a little bit. Her name is Karen Mills, and she works with families who need extra help. She's really nice. I've known her for years. Is she going to take us away? The question burst out before Emily could stop it. No one is taking you anywhere right now, Officer Reynolds said firmly. We're just going to talk, okay? We need to understand what's happening so we can figure out the best way to help. The door opened, and a woman walked in. She had dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wore jeans and a soft blue sweater, and carried a bag decorated with cartoon animals. She didn't look scary. She looked like someone's mom. Hi there, the woman said, crouching down to Emily's level. I'm Karen. You must be Emily and Lily. Lily perked up. You have puppies on your bag. Karen smiled. I do. Do you like dogs? Uh-huh. We had a dog named Chester, but he went to live somewhere else. Emily's chest ached. Dad had given Chester away 6 months ago. Said they couldn't afford dog food anymore. Lily had cried for 3 days. Karen sat down in the chair next to Emily. Emily, Officer Reynolds told me you came here because you're worried about things at home. That was really brave. Can you tell me a little more about what a normal day looks like for you? Emily picked at a loose thread on her backpack. I wake up early. I make breakfast, usually cereal because that's easy. I get Lily dressed and ready. Then I check on Dad. Sometimes he's awake, sometimes he's not. What happens if he's not awake? I leave him a note. Tell him I'm taking Lily to Mrs. Chen's store, or to the park, or just around, so he won't worry. Karen wrote something down. How often does your dad sleep through the morning? Emily thought about it. Maybe 4 times a week, sometimes more. And school? Do you go to school every day? I try to, but sometimes I can't because someone needs to watch Lily. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. 9-year-olds shouldn't have to choose between school and babysitting. Emily knew that, even before the look that passed between Karen and Officer Reynolds confirmed it. Tell me about food, Karen said gently. What did you eat yesterday? Breakfast was cereal, lunch I had at school. They have a program for free lunch. Dinner was… Emily tried to remember. Crackers, and some peanut butter. We're out of bread. What about Lily? What did she eat? The same, and a banana. We had 1 banana left. Karen's pen moved across her paper, but her voice stayed calm, warm. When was the last time your dad went to the grocery store? Emily didn't know. Weeks? Maybe longer? I don't remember. Okay, that's okay. Karen reached into her bag and pulled out a small stuffed dog, offering it to Lily. This is for you, sweetheart. Lily's eyes went wide. For me? All yours. While Lily hugged her new toy, Karen turned her attention back to Emily. I know these questions are hard. You're doing great. Just a couple more, all right? Emily nodded, even though her throat felt tight. Does your dad ever seem confused? Like he doesn't know what day it is or where he is? Sometimes. Last week he called me Sarah. That's my mom's name. Does he ever get angry? Raise his voice? No. Emily said it quickly, firmly. He's not mean. He's just gone. Like he's there, but not there at the same time, like he's far away even when he's sitting right next to us. That was it exactly. The thing Emily had been trying to explain. Dad wasn't a villain. He was just lost, drowning, disappearing a little more each day. Karen nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. Emily, I'm going to be honest with you. What you've described sounds like your dad is having a really hard time taking care of himself, which means he's having a hard time taking care of you and Lily too. That's not your fault, and it's not his fault either. Sometimes people need help, and there's no shame in that. So what happens now? Emily whispered. Now, Karen said, I'm going to go visit your house and talk with your dad. You and Lily are going to stay here where it's safe. Maybe play some games or watch a movie in the family room. And then we're going to figure out what your family needs. Emily wanted to ask more questions, 100 more questions, but Lily was tugging on her sleeve, wanting to show her the stuffed dog's floppy ears. So Emily just nodded and wondered if the life she'd known, difficult and scary as it had become, was about to disappear completely. While Karen drove to the Carter house, Officer Reynolds made another call. Mrs. Anderson, this is Tom Reynolds at the Maplewood Police Station. I have one of your students here, Emily Carter. No, she's not in trouble, but I need to ask you some questions. In the station's family room, Emily sat on a worn couch with Lily, watching a cartoon neither of them was really paying attention to. The room had toys in bins, coloring books on a low table, and posters about stranger danger on the walls. It was supposed to feel safe. It mostly felt like waiting. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Anderson rushed through the door, her reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck, her expression worried. Emily! She spotted her immediately. Sweetheart, are you all right? Emily nodded, but tears suddenly burned in her eyes. Mrs. Anderson had that effect. She was the kind of teacher who remembered birthdays and noticed when kids seemed sad, and always had Band-Aids in her desk drawer. Mrs. Anderson sat down beside her, and Officer Reynolds pulled up a chair across from them. Mrs. Anderson, you've had Emily in your class all year. Have you noticed anything concerning? The teacher's hands folded in her lap, her face troubled. I have, she admitted quietly. Emily is one of my brightest students, but lately, she's been falling asleep in class. She's missed 7 days this semester, which is unusual for her. And her lunch. Mrs. Anderson's voice softened. She either forgets it or doesn't have one. I've been sneaking granola bars into her backpack when I can. Emily's cheeks burned. She hadn't known Mrs. Anderson noticed. Her homework has been inconsistent too, Mrs. Anderson continued. Not because she can't do it. Emily is very capable, but because she seems exhausted, distracted. I asked her a few weeks ago if everything was okay at home and she said yes, but I could tell she was hiding something. Why didn't you report it? Officer Reynolds asked, not accusatory, just curious. Mrs. Anderson looked down. I kept thinking maybe I was reading too much into it. Maybe she was just going through a phase. Her father seemed fine at parent-teacher conferences last fall. Tired, but who isn't? I thought about calling, but... She trailed off, then looked at Emily. I should have called. I'm sorry, Emily, I should have helped sooner. It's not your fault, Emily whispered. Actually, Officer Reynolds said gently, what you noticed is exactly the kind of information that helps us understand what's happening. Small signs, changes over time. Sometimes people are really good at hiding when they're struggling. Mrs. Anderson nodded, wiping her eyes. What happens now? To Emily and Lily? That's what we're working on figuring out. Officer Reynolds glanced at Emily. But I can tell you this. Emily did something incredibly brave today. She asked for help when she needed it most. Mrs. Anderson reached over and squeezed Emily's hand. You're one of the strongest people I know, Emily Carter. Emily didn't feel strong. She felt small and scared and guilty. But Mrs. Anderson's hand was warm, and the cartoon was still playing, and Lily was making her stuffed dog dance on the couch cushions. And for just a moment, surrounded by people who actually saw her, really saw her, Emily let herself believe that maybe, possibly, she'd done the right thing after all. Karen Mills had seen a lot of homes in her 15 years as a social worker. Mansions hiding secrets, apartments bursting with love despite cramped spaces, houses that looked perfect on the outside but held danger within. The Carter house looked tired, paint peeling on the shutters, grass overgrown in the front yard. A newspaper still in its plastic wrapper from 3 days ago sitting on the porch steps. Karen knocked gently, once, twice, 3 times. Finally, the door opened a crack. James Carter stood in the doorway in a wrinkled t-shirt and sweatpants. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were red-rimmed, confused, slightly panicked. "Mr. Carter, I'm Karen Mills from Child and Family Services. May I come in?" "Where's Emily?" His voice cracked. "Where are my girls?" "They're safe. They're at the police station. Emily came in this morning asking for help." Something collapsed in James's face, not anger, but shame so profound it was painful to witness. He stepped back, letting Karen inside. The living room told its own story. Mail piled on the coffee table, unopened. Dishes stacked in the sink, visible from where Karen stood. Curtains drawn tight against the morning sun. A prescription bottle on the floor, half hidden under a blanket. But there were other things, too. Family photos still on the walls. A child's drawing taped to the refrigerator. Lily's toys organized neatly in a corner. Emily's work, probably. This wasn't a home destroyed by cruelty. This was a home slowly suffocating under grief and illness and isolation. "Mr. Carter, when did you last see a doctor?" James sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I don't know. Month? 2 months? The insurance lapsed when I lost my job." "And Emily, when did she become responsible for taking care of Lily?" "I didn't mean—" His voice broke. "I didn't mean for it to happen. Some days I can't get out of bed. The pain, and without Sarah." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I'm not a bad father, I'm not." "I don't think you're a bad father," Karen said quietly, sitting in the chair across from him. "I think you're a father who's drowning and doesn't know how to ask for help." "Emily shouldn't have had to." James couldn't finish. "No," Karen agreed, "she shouldn't have, but she did. And now we need to figure out what happens next." She pulled out her notepad, documenting what she saw, not with judgment, but with careful attention. The empty refrigerator, the unpaid bills, the medicine that cost too much, the man who'd lost his wife, his job, his health, his hope, and was now losing his children too. "Mr. Carter, I need to be honest with you. Based on what Emily described and what I'm seeing here, I can't let the girls come home today. Not until we have a plan in place to ensure they're safe and cared for." James's shoulders shook. He didn't argue, he didn't fight. He just nodded, defeated. "But," Karen continued, "I want to help. There are resources, medical care, counseling, food assistance, employment services. If you're willing to accept help, we can work together. I don't deserve help." "It's not about deserving," Karen said gently. "It's about what Emily and Lily need, and what they need is their father, healthy, stable, and present. Can you do that?" James looked at the photos on the wall. His daughters smiling. Sarah, forever frozen in happier times. "I can try," he whispered. Officer Reynolds stood on the Peterson family's porch, notepad in hand. Mr. Peterson answered the door with a garden hose still running in the background, watering his prize-winning roses. "Officer, is everything all right?" "Just following up on a situation. You live next door to the Carters, correct?" "James and the girls?" "Sure, for about 5 years now." Mr. Peterson glanced toward the Carter house. "Why? What happened?" "When was the last time you saw the family?" Mr. Peterson scratched his head. "James, maybe 2 weeks ago. Took his trash out. The girls. I see the older one, Emily, pretty regularly. She's always walking that little one around in a stroller." "Did anything seem unusual to you?" "Unusual how?" Reynolds chose his words carefully. "Did James seem like he was struggling? Did the girls seem like they needed anything?" Mr. Peterson's expression shifted, uncomfortable now. "Look, I mind my own business. James has had it rough since Sarah passed, everyone knows that, but he seemed to be handling it, kept to himself mostly. And Emily, a 9-year-old girl caring for a toddler by herself, that didn't concern you." The man's face flushed. "I just thought, kids help out, right? I used to watch my little brother when I was young. It builds character." Reynolds didn't argue, just moved to the next question. Did you ever offer help? Bring over a meal? Check in? Silence. Mr. Peterson? We thought about it, he said finally. My wife mentioned it a few times. But James, he's proud, you know. After Sarah died, people tried to help, but he kept saying he was fine. Eventually, people stopped asking. Reynolds wrote that down. People stopped asking. He visited 3 more houses on the street. Same story, different voices. Mrs. Martinez. I noticed the lawn got long, but I figured he was busy. The Hendersons. We saw Emily walking Lily at odd hours sometimes, but we thought maybe they were just on different schedules. Old Mrs. Chen from the corner store. Emily comes in for milk and bread with exact change. Always polite. I thought she was just being helpful. Everyone noticed something. No one said anything. Back at the station, Reynolds shared his findings with Karen, who'd just returned from the Carter house. Classic case, Karen said, exhaustion in her voice. A family drowning in plain sight. Everyone sees pieces, but no one puts the puzzle together. Or they see it and don't want to get involved, Reynolds added. Can you blame them? Karen sighed. It's easier to believe everything's fine than to acknowledge someone needs help and you didn't offer it. Emily was coloring at the table with Lily, carefully staying inside the lines of a butterfly. She looked up when Karen and Reynolds entered. Did you talk to my dad? I did, Karen said gently. Is he mad at me? Karen knelt down beside her chair. No, sweetie, he's not mad. He's sad. Sad that things got so hard and that you had to be the one to ask for help. But he's not angry with you. Emily's crayon paused mid-stroke. What happens now? Karen and Reynolds exchanged a glance. The question everyone kept asking. The question that never had an easy answer. Now, Karen said carefully, we make sure you and Lily have somewhere safe to stay while we help your dad get better. And we figure out how a whole community let a little girl carry a weight she should never have had to carry alone. Chapter 8. The Father Speaks. James Carter sat in a small meeting room at the police station, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. Across from him, Karen Mills waited patiently while Officer Reynolds stood by the door, not threatening, just present. I know you're not here to arrest me, James said finally, his voice hoarse. But maybe you should. This isn't about punishment, Mr. Carter, Karen said. This is about understanding what happened and how to move forward. James stared at his coffee. You want to know what happened? My wife died. That's what happened. The words sat heavy in the room. Tell me about Sarah, Karen said gently. Something flickered across James's face, pain, but also something softer. She was everything. The organized one. The strong one. She remembered doctor appointments and permission slips and when to buy new shoes because the girls were growing. She made our house feel like a home. His voice cracked. And then one night she went to the grocery store. Some kid ran a red light. And just like that, she was gone. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Karen nodded, letting him continue. I tried. God, I tried so hard at first. I went to the grief counseling twice. But sitting in a circle talking about feelings doesn't pay bills or fix broken washing machines or explain to a 3-year-old why mommy isn't coming home. James rubbed his face with both hands. Then the factory closed. 200 jobs, gone. I looked for work, sent out 50 applications. You know how many callbacks I got? 3. No one wants to hire a 42-year-old with a gap in his resume and medical issues. Tell me about the medical issues, Karen said. Chronic back pain. Started 2 years ago lifting something wrong at work. Gets worse when I'm stressed, which is always. The pain management doctor prescribed medication, but insurance only covered part of it. After I lost my job, I lost the insurance. He laughed bitterly. So I started cutting pills in half, taking them only on really bad days, trying to stretch them. Reynolds shifted slightly, recognizing the story he'd heard too many times before. Some days the pain is so bad I can't get out of bed, James continued. And on those days, Emily. His voice broke completely. Emily would get herself and Lily ready, Make breakfast, take care of everything, and I'd lie there hating myself, knowing my 9-year-old daughter was doing my job, but unable to move. Tears streamed down his face now, unchecked. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that I'd find work soon, that I'd get better, that I just needed a little more time. But time just made everything worse. "Why didn't you ask for help?" Karen asked quietly. "Pride," James said immediately. "Stupid, toxic pride. Sarah's family offered, but they'd never liked me much. Thought she married beneath her. I wasn't about to prove them right. Church people came by a few times, but I sent them away. Told them we were fine. I didn't want to be a charity case." He looked up at Karen, eyes red and desperate. "I wasn't trying to hurt my girls. I love them more than anything. I just didn't know how to ask for help without admitting I'd completely failed as a father." "You didn't fail," Karen said. "You fell. There's a difference." "Emily had to walk to a police station to get help," James said. "That sounds like failure to me." "Emily walked to a police station because she loves you," Karen corrected gently. "She didn't come here to report a bad father. She came here to save one." Karen asked James to walk her through a typical week. What she heard painted a picture far more complex than simple neglect. Monday morning, I'd wake up with Emily standing by my bed, already dressed, asking if I needed anything. She was always so careful, never demanding, never complaining, just checking on me. James's voice was quiet, ashamed. She'd made this routine, cereal for breakfast because it was easy. She'd dress Lily, brush her hair, terribly because she's 9 and doesn't know how to do ponytails right, but she tried. Then she'd write me a note before leaving. "Dad, we went to the park, back by lunch. Love, Emily." Karen watched him carefully. "How often did you read those notes?" "Every time. I'd lie there reading them over and over, hating myself." "Tell me about the good days," Karen said. "Were there any?" James's expression shifted slightly. Yeah, there were. Days when the pain wasn't as bad, when I could get up. I'd make them pancakes, their favorite. We'd watch movies together. I'd help Emily with homework. Those days I could almost pretend everything was normal. How often did those happen? At first, maybe 3 times a week. Lately? He swallowed hard. Maybe once. If that. Karen made notes. What about Lily's medical care? Her last checkup? James closed his eyes. 7 months ago. She needed her vaccinations, but the clinic wanted payment up front. I kept telling myself I'd take her next week, when I got a paycheck from somewhere. But next week never came. And Emily's school? She missed days when I couldn't function and Lily needed supervision. Emily never complained. She'd just say, "It's okay, Dad, I'll catch up." Like it was her responsibility to make me feel better about failing her. Officer Reynolds spoke for the first time. "Mr. Carter, did you ever consider that Emily might tell someone?" "Every day," James said. "Every single day I was terrified she'd tell a teacher or a friend's parent. And every day she didn't, I felt relieved and guilty at the same time. Because her silence meant she was protecting me, and she shouldn't have had to do that." Karen leaned forward. "James, I need you to understand something. What happened to your family, the loss of Sarah, your job, your health, those are real traumas. But the way you responded, isolating yourself, refusing help, putting adult responsibilities on a child, that caused harm. Unintentional harm, but harm nonetheless." "I know." The words were barely a whisper. "The question is, what are you willing to do about it now?" James looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. "Anything, whatever it takes. I need to be better for them. I need to be their dad again, not their burden." "It won't be easy," Karen warned. "You'll need medical treatment for your back, counseling for your grief and depression, job assistance, parenting support, and you won't get Emily and Lily back immediately. There will be supervised visits, evaluations, requirements you'll have to meet." "I understand." "Do you?" Karen's voice was firm but not unkind. "Because this isn't about wanting to be better. It's about doing the work, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like getting out of bed." Even when your pride tells you to refuse help. James nodded slowly. I spent 2 years drowning because I was too proud to grab the life raft. I won't make that mistake again. Karen studied him for a long moment, then made a decision. Okay, let's get started. Karen pulled out a folder from her bag, thick with papers, resources, phone numbers. But first, she wanted James to understand something crucial. I want to show you what help looked like, she said. The help that was always there, waiting for you to say yes. She laid out a timeline on the table. 3 months after Sarah died, your church organized a meal train. 17 families signed up to bring dinner twice a week for 2 months. You accepted meals for 1 week, then called the coordinator and said you were fine. James's jaw tightened. I didn't want to be a project. 6 months later, Sarah's sister offered to take the girls every weekend so you could rest, look for work, or just breathe. You said no. She judged me. I could see it in her eyes. Maybe, Karen acknowledged. Or maybe you saw judgment that wasn't there because you were already judging yourself. She continued down the list. The factory closure included free job counseling and resume services. You attended 1 session. It felt pointless. Your old supervisor called 4 times offering to be a reference to help you network. You never called back. James started to respond, but Karen held up her hand. The community health clinic has a sliding scale payment system. For someone with your income, or lack of it, Lily's vaccinations would have cost $15. Emily's school has a family liaison who helps with everything from food assistance to after-school care. Free. The library runs a program where kids can check out internet hotspots and laptops for job searching. She paused, letting the information sink in. James, you weren't alone because no help existed. You were alone because you refused every hand that reached toward you. The words hit like physical blows. James slumped in his chair. I thought asking for help meant admitting I couldn't do it, he said finally. That I'd failed Sarah. Failed as a man. As a father. And instead, Karen said gently, you proved that pride can be more dangerous than any struggle. Officer Reynolds, who'd been quietly listening, spoke up. I've been doing this job 30 years. You know what I've learned? The strongest people aren't the ones who never need help. They're the ones brave enough to ask for it. James looked at the folder on the table, all those resources he could have accessed months ago, years ago even. My daughter had to walk into a police station because I was too stubborn to walk into a church office, he said, the realization devastating. She's 9 years old, and she was braver than me. She still is, Karen said. Which is why we need to make sure that when she sees you again, you're showing her what real strength looks like. Not the kind that suffers in silence, but the kind that says, I need help, and I'm going to accept it. She opened the folder. So, here's what happens next. Tomorrow morning, you have an appointment at the community health center. They're expecting you. You'll see a doctor for your back pain and a counselor for grief support. I've already arranged payment assistance. James started to protest, but she continued. You'll also meet with an employment specialist. They work specifically with people who've been out of work due to medical or family circumstances. And you'll attend parenting classes, not because you're a bad parent, but because single parenting while grieving requires tools you don't currently have. And Emily and Lily. Karen's expression softened. They'll stay in a temporary foster home, a lovely couple who've done this for years. You'll have supervised visits starting this weekend. If you follow through with everything we've discussed, we'll reassess in 60 days. James nodded, tears streaming down his face again. Can I see them? Before they go, just for a minute? Karen and Reynolds exchanged glances. Yes, Karen said. I think that's exactly what everyone needs. News traveled fast in a small town. By late afternoon, Mrs. Anderson had made 6 phone calls. By evening, the community started moving in ways it hadn't for 2 years. Pastor Williams from Maplewood Community Church was the first to arrive at the station. He carried a grocery bag filled with snacks and a handwritten note that said simply, "We never stopped caring. We just stopped trying. That changes now." Officer Reynolds accepted it with a nod of respect. Next came Maria Martinez, who owned the bakery on 3rd Street. She'd packed a box of cookies and pastries. "For the girls," she said, "and tell James. Tell him my husband lost his job 3 years ago. We almost lost everything, but people helped us. It's his turn to receive. Mrs." Jen from the corner store arrived with coloring books and crayons. "Emily comes to my store every week, always so polite, always counting pennies." Her voice cracked. I should have asked more questions. By sunset, a pile had grown in the station's family room. Children's clothes in Emily and Lily's sizes, grocery gift cards, a crock pot with a note that said, "For easy meals," books, toys, a handmade quilt from the church quilting circle. Karen watched the procession with something between hope and heartbreak. "This is what happens when people finally pay attention," she said to Reynolds. "I just wish it didn't take a crisis." "Better late than never," Reynolds replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. The Hendersons showed up together, Tommy and his parents. Mrs. Henderson approached Emily, who was showing Lily a picture book someone had donated. "Emily, honey, I'm so sorry we didn't see. Tommy told me you've been missing school and I should have checked on you." Emily looked up, startled. "It's okay. It's not okay," Mrs. Henderson said firmly. "But it will be. Your dad has our phone number. When you're back home, Tommy can come over and help you catch up on schoolwork. And you, all of you, are invited to dinner every Sunday. No excuses." Tommy held out a gift bag. "I brought you some of my old chapter books. Figured you might like them." Emily accepted it, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you." One by one they came, not with pity, but with presence, not with judgment, but with action. Mr. Peterson, the neighbor who watered his roses while a family fell apart next door, brought an envelope. Inside, a check and a note. "For bills, for food, for whatever James needs to get back on his feet. I'm retired. I had time to help and didn't. I won't make that mistake twice." By the time the sun set completely, Karen had a list of 17 families who'd offered support. Meal deliveries, childcare, job leads, rides to appointments, and something perhaps more valuable than all of it, consistent presence. "Community," Karen said, looking at the pile of gifts and the list of names. "This is what it's supposed to look like." Officer Reynolds nodded, thinking about all the cases where this didn't happen, where families fell through cracks because everyone assumed someone else was helping. Emily sat surrounded by gifts from people who were essentially strangers, except they weren't really. They were neighbors. They'd always been there, just not there enough. "Are all these for us?" Lily asked, hugging her new stuffed dog. "Yes, sweetie," Emily said softly. "People want to help." "Like you helped Daddy?" Emily looked at her little sister, so small, so innocent, so unaware of how much had changed today. "Yeah," Emily whispered. "Like that." News traveled fast in a small town. By late afternoon, Mrs. Anderson had made 6 phone calls. By evening, the community started moving in ways it hadn't for 2 years. Pastor Williams from Maplewood Community Church was the first to arrive at the station. He carried a grocery bag filled with snacks and a handwritten note that said simply, "We never stopped caring. We just stopped trying. That changes now." Officer Reynolds accepted it with a nod of respect. Next came Maria Martinez, who owned the bakery on 3rd Street. She'd packed a box of cookies and pastries. "For the girls," she said, "and tell James. Tell him my husband lost his job 3 years ago. We almost lost everything, but people helped us. It's his turn to receive. Mrs." Jen from the corner store arrived with coloring books and crayons. "Emily comes to my store every week, always so polite, always counting pennies." Her voice cracked. I should have asked more questions. By sunset, a pile had grown in the station's family room. Children's clothes in Emily and Lily's sizes, grocery gift cards, a crock pot with a note that said, "For easy meals," books, toys, a handmade quilt from the church quilting circle. Karen watched the procession with something between hope and heartbreak. "This is what happens when people finally pay attention," she said to Reynolds. "I just wish it didn't take a crisis." "Better late than never," Reynolds replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. The Hendersons showed up together, Tommy and his parents. Mrs. Henderson approached Emily, who was showing Lily a picture book someone had donated. "Emily, honey, I'm so sorry we didn't see. Tommy told me you've been missing school and I should have checked on you." Emily looked up, startled. "It's okay." "It's not okay," Mrs. Henderson said firmly, "but it will be. Your dad has our phone number. When you're back home, Tommy can come over and help you catch up on schoolwork. And you, all of you, are invited to dinner every Sunday. No excuses." Tommy held out a gift bag. "I brought you some of my old chapter books. Figured you might like them." Emily accepted it, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you." One by one they came, not with pity but with presence, not with judgment but with action. Mr. Peterson, the neighbor who watered his roses while a family fell apart next door, brought an envelope. Inside, a check and a note, for bills, for food, for whatever James needs to get back on his feet. "I'm retired. I had time to help and didn't. I won't make that mistake twice." By the time the sun set completely, Karen had a list of 17 families who'd offered support. Meal deliveries, childcare, job leads, rides to appointments, and something perhaps more valuable than all of it, consistent presence. "Community," Karen said, looking at the pile of gifts and the list of names. "This is what it's supposed to look like." Officer Reynolds nodded, thinking about all the cases where this didn't happen, where families fell through cracks because everyone assumed someone else was helping. Emily sat surrounded by gifts from people who were essentially strangers, except they weren't, really. They were neighbors. They'd always been there, just not there enough. "Are all these for us?" Lily asked, hugging her new stuffed dog. "Yes, sweetie," Emily said softly. "People want to help." "Like you helped Daddy?" Emily looked at her little sister, so small, so innocent, so unaware of how much had changed today. "Yeah," Emily whispered. "Like that." Judge Coleman's expression softened at Emily's words. "You were scared for him. Can you explain what you mean?" Emily's hands gripped the edge of the witness chair. She'd practiced this with Karen, but sitting here, with Dad watching, with strangers listening, with everything depending on what she said, made the words harder to find. "After Mom died, Dad tried really hard," Emily began. "He made us breakfast every morning. He read Lily bedtime stories. He helped me with my science project about butterflies. He was sad, but he was still there." She paused, gathering courage. "But then things kept happening. He lost his job, his back started hurting, bills kept coming. And every time something bad happened, it was like a little piece of him went away. Like he was carrying so many heavy things that he couldn't hold himself up anymore." Judge Coleman nodded slowly. "And when did you realize he needed help?" "I think I always knew," Emily admitted. "But I kept hoping it would get better. I kept thinking if I was just good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe he'd come back, but he didn't." Her voice cracked. "And then one day I found Lily outside alone. She could have gotten hurt. She could have wandered into the street or the woods and I realized hoping wasn't enough anymore." "So you went to the police station?" "Yes, ma'am." "Emily," the judge said gently, "your father's lawyer wants to argue that you and Lily should be returned to his care. He's completed 3 weeks of counseling, started medical treatment for his back pain, and is enrolled in job training programs. But I need to know, do you feel safe going home?" The courtroom went completely silent. Emily looked at her father, really looked at him. His hands were shaking, his eyes were red. But he was here, present, awake, more there than he'd been in months. "I don't know," Emily said honestly. "I want to feel safe. I want things to be like they used to be. But I'm scared that if we go back, everything will fall apart again." Dad made a sound, something between a sob and a breath, and his lawyer touched his arm. Judge Coleman leaned back in her chair. "That's a very wise answer, Emily. Fear doesn't mean you don't love someone. It means you understand that love isn't always enough." She paused, then asked the question that mattered most. "If you could say anything to your father right now, anything at all, what would it be?" Emily turned in her chair to face Dad directly. Tears were streaming down both their faces now. "I'd say," Emily's voice was small but steady, "I'd say he's not a bad person. He's not a bad dad. He was trying to carry everything by himself, and it was too heavy. And I didn't know how to help him, so I found people who could." The words poured out faster now, 2 years of fear and love and exhaustion finally finding voice. "I'd say I'm not mad at him, I'm not. I just wanted someone to see that we were drowning. I wanted someone to notice before it was too late." Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "And I'd say I miss him. The real him. The dad who sang silly songs and made terrible pancakes and told me I could be anything I wanted. I miss that dad so much." Her voice broke completely. "And I really, really hope that he comes back. Not right away, maybe, but someday. Because Lily needs him. And I need him too." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, tears visible in her eyes. Dad stood up. His lawyer tried to stop him, but he was already moving. Judge Coleman didn't object. She simply watched as James Carter crossed the small courtroom and knelt in front of his daughter. "I'm coming back, Em," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise you, I'm fighting my way back, and this time, I'm not too proud to ask for help doing it." Emily threw her arms around his neck, and they held each other while the courtroom pretended not to watch. Judge Coleman cleared her throat gently. "I think," she said quietly. We all needed to hear that. Judge Coleman allowed the embrace to last exactly 30 seconds before gently clearing her throat. "Mr. Carter, please return to your seat." James reluctantly let go of Emily, but not before whispering, "I love you, sweetheart. So much. I love you too, Dad." Once everyone was seated again, Judge Coleman removed her glasses and looked at the papers spread before her. The courtroom waited, holding its breath. "This is one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in 20 years on the bench," she began. "Not because the facts are unclear, but because there are no perfect solutions. Only choices that try to balance safety with healing, protection with hope." She looked at James. "Mr. Carter, I've reviewed your progress. 3 weeks of counseling attendance, medical treatment initiated, job training enrollment, letters of support from your church, neighbors, and community members. These are good first steps, but they are first steps, not finish lines." James nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Emily and Lily cannot return to your full custody today," Judge Coleman continued. "The conditions that led to this situation, untreated grief, medical issues, financial instability, social isolation, those don't disappear in 3 weeks." Emily's heart sank. She'd known this was possible, but hearing it made it real. "However," the judge said, her tone shifting slightly, "I'm not convinced that separating this family completely serves anyone's best interest either." Emily's testimony made something clear. This isn't a case of malice or intentional harm. This is a case of a family that fell apart and needs support to rebuild. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Therefore, I'm ordering a graduated reunification plan." Karen leaned forward, listening intently. "Emily and Lily will remain in foster care with the Morgan family for an additional 60 days. During that time, Mr. Carter will continue all current treatments and programs. He will also complete a parenting skills course, maintain steady employment or job training, and establish stable housing with adequate food and utilities." Judge Coleman looked at James over her glasses. "You will have supervised visitation 3 times per week, increased from once weekly. After 30 days, if progress continues, we'll move to unsupervised day visits. After 60 days, we'll reassess for overnight visits and potential return to home. What if he doesn't complete everything?" Emily's voice was small but necessary. The judge's expression was kind but honest. "Then we'll have another hearing and make different decisions. Emily, the goal is always to keep families together when it's safe and healthy. But safety comes first. Always." She turned back to James. "Mr. Carter, I want to be crystal clear. This is not a punishment. This is a structured path back to your daughters. But it requires consistent effort, honest communication with Ms. Mills and your counselors, and, most importantly, continued willingness to accept help. I understand, Your Honor, James said, and I'll do everything you've asked, whatever it takes. I believe you will, Judge Coleman said, because I saw something today that gives me hope. I saw a father who loves his children enough to admit he failed them, and I saw a daughter who loves her father enough to save him. She gathered her papers. This court will reconvene in 60 days to review progress. Ms. Mills will coordinate all visits and services. Mr. Carter, you may have 5 minutes with your daughters before they leave with their foster family. The gavel came down with a soft thud. Not an ending, not a beginning, just a careful, cautious step toward something better. James stood and crossed to Emily again. This time, Lily was brought in from the waiting room where she'd been playing with Mrs. Morgan. "Daddy!" Lily launched herself at him, and James caught her, holding both his daughters like they were the most precious things in the world. "I'm going to make this right," he promised them. "It won't be fast, and it won't be perfect, but I'm going to show up every single day and fight to be the dad you deserve." Emily believed him. Not because everything was fixed, but because for the first time in 2 years her father's eyes looked clear. Present. There. 60 days, she said. 60 days, he agreed. And then we try again. 63 days later. Emily stood on the front porch of the house she'd lived in her whole life, holding Lily's hand. The grass was cut, the shutters had been painted, the newspaper wasn't piling up anymore. Small things, important things. Dad opened the door, and Emily noticed other changes too. He'd gained weight, the healthy kind, from regular meals. His eyes were brighter. He stood straighter, the physical therapy helping his back pain. "Welcome home," he said, his voice thick with emotion. It wasn't perfect. The house still held memories of hard times, the couch where he'd slept too many days away, the kitchen where Emily had made too many meals alone. Those ghosts didn't disappear just because things were better now. But there were new things too. A calendar on the wall, color-coded with appointments, school events, meal plans, a shelf of library books about parenting and grief, a photo from last week's visit to the park, all 3 of them smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in years. "I made spaghetti," Dad said. "Your favorite. And Mrs. Henderson is coming over later to teach me how to do proper ponytails because," he gestured helplessly at Lily's crooked pigtails. "I tried." Emily laughed, a real laugh that surprised even her. They ate dinner together at the kitchen table. Dad asked about school. Emily told him about the science project she was working on with Tommy Henderson. Lily chattered about Biscuit the dog and how Mrs. Morgan promised they could visit any time. After dinner, Dad pulled out a notebook. "My counselor suggested we do this together. It's called a family meeting. We talk about things that are going well and things that are hard. No secrets. No pretending." Emily appreciated the honesty. "Okay, I'll start. Something good. You remembered to pack my lunch this whole week." "Something hard," Dad added, "is that I still have bad days. Days when getting out of bed feels impossible. But now I have a plan for those days. I call Pastor Williams or Mrs. Martinez and they help." They went around the table, sharing honestly, building something new on top of the broken pieces. Later, Dad tucked Lily into bed, reading her favorite story about the moon, doing the voices, making her giggle. Then he came to Emily's room, sitting on the edge of her bed like he used to do before everything fell apart. "I know I can't undo the past 2 years," he said quietly. "I can't give you back the childhood you should have had, the one where you got to just be a kid instead of raising your sister and worrying about your father. Dad, let me finish." His voice was gentle, but firm. "I can't change what happened, but I can promise you this, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the dad who disappeared. I'm here, I'm present, and on the days when it's hard, and there will be hard days, I won't hide. I'll ask for help." Emily felt tears building. "I'm proud of you." James's eyes widened. "You're proud of me?" "Yeah, because you didn't give up. You could have, but you didn't." He pulled her into a hug. "I love you, Em. Thank you for being brave enough to save us." After he left, Emily lay in her own bed, in her own room, listening to the familiar sounds of her house. Dad doing dishes, the television on low, Lily's soft breathing through the wall. It wasn't the fairy tale ending where everything was magically fixed. There would still be counseling appointments and supervised check-ins with Karen. There would still be hard conversations and difficult days. But for the first time in 2 years, Emily felt like she could breathe. She pulled out the stuffed dog Karen had given her that first day at the police station, the one she'd kept even after getting dozens of other toys. "We did it," she whispered to it. Outside her window, the neighborhood was quiet. Mr. Peterson's garden lights glowed softly. The Martinez house had its porch light on. Mrs. Henderson's car pulled into her driveway, home from her weekly book club. A small town, where people knew each other's names, where families could fall apart in plain sight, but also where people could come together, where communities could catch those who were falling, where a 9-year-old girl's quiet voice could change everything. Emily closed her eyes, finally allowing herself something she hadn't felt in years: hope.